Hi, everyone. I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm here today with Laura Karpman, who earned an Emmy nomination for her jazzy musical score on the HBO and Max documentary film Rock Hudson, All That Heaven Allowed, that paints a fascinating but bittersweet portrait of the movie icon's life as a closeted gay man. Laura, your soundtrack to the film is terrific.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks.
and I know it's being released as an album on August 9th, this coming Friday.
Yeah, this week, I think. Yeah.
Congratulations. Talk
Thank
about
you
your
very much.
creative process for the in crafting the Hudson score, if you would.
Well, it's interesting because I did two jazz scores back to back. One was the Rock Hudson, and I think I did that in January or February of wait a minute, where are we? Of 23. And then right after it, I did American Fiction, like
Right,
literally on the heels of it.
right.
And so both scores obviously have a lot in common, but Rock Hudson in many, many ways was kind of a study for American fiction. And there were ways with American fiction that I embraced some of what we learned on Rock Hudson, and then went in different ways because, of course, every project requires something different. But that's kind of a half answer to your question. The full answer to your question is there needed to be themes that embraced aspects of his life. So there's Dreamweaver, which is really about, the idea of fantasizing, making in Hollywood, coming to Hollywood from, small town and being, entranced and ultimately embraced by everything that was here. And then there's some fun, like there's a mambo cue that's like guys going like, huh, which is, of course, all about his kind of closeted gay life celebration, partying, and all of that. There's also really a beautiful cue, maybe my favorite one, that is about his romances and escapades and the things that he went out and did. And then there's a lot of music written for the kind of the more dramatic stuff in his life. So those themes appear in sort of more scory iterations as well. When I say scory, I mean stuff that you would more typically hear in a score rather than that kind of these jazz tunes. And then, of course, there's getting AIDS and everything leading up to his death. So there's all of that as well.
Yeah, your music tells a story really as much as the film does.
Thank you.
It mirrors what we're feeling and what he's feeling. Uh, I mean, I thought the doc was actually very well done.
I
And
thought so too. Stephen is an absolutely fantastic filmmaker. We did Sid and Judy together, which is really another incredible documentary about Judy Garland and her husband Sid. I kind of can't remember his last name, but and their
left,
relationship, which was really acerbic. And that was our first collaboration together. And this one I think is really good. There are a lot of really interesting pieces that are coming out lately about the closet. This was one of them. Fellow Travelers was another one, a program that I
right.
really enjoyed. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately too, what it meant, what it means, the sting of it, how it still affects gay life now. Um, I think it does more than people think it does. I think certainly people in my generation.
I think the prevailing belief, Laura, is that it's history, that it is in
Yeah.
the rearview mirror. But you're right. There still is a certain. We don't know how much there is because the closet remains in place, and there still is a lot of room in it, unfortunately.
But I think a whole lot of it hold that with us too, having lived in it and then coming out of it and what that all entailed. And I think I love what's happening with younger people in terms of really discovering, the rainbow of gender identities. I think that's great. It's very freeing. And but it's also really, really important to know queer history. And so this documentary, I think, does a really good job of laying out at least one corner of it.
And just as an aside, I used to work for Merv Griffin.
Oh, you
And
did? Oh,
I,
wow.
I I was a
Yeah.
talent coordinator for the Merv Griffin show back in the dying days of the show in the mid '80s, and
What a hugely talented guy he was.
very much. And but I wrote a column upon his death, discussing the fact that he was a closeted gay man and how sad it was that he couldn't emerge and live his true self for so many years. And it 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 was it the crap hit the fan, as they say, and there was a
Yeah.
lot of controversy simply around the fact that I had written this column that got into the paper at the Hollywood Reporter somehow. Against all odds, everyone that could stop it was on vacation. Um, and
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. I mean, look,
I'm very proud of the fact that I did write it, because it was not meant in any malicious way, and in fact it was
no, there
the opposite.
it is complicated subjects. And there are closets and people are very much living in them now. I mean, all over the world, and even, in places that that we frequent. So at any rate, listen, regarding the documentary, yes, it's really a period piece about a specific time,
Yeah.
but there are also issues that I think relate to, to a lot of things that people are thinking about: self-identity. What does bravery mean? What does it mean to really to make a change? And I mean, Rock Hudson became he became an advocate, even though he maybe he meant to, maybe he didn't, I don't really know. But by virtue of the fact that he came out and they admitted that he had AIDS, he basically changed the trajectory of AIDS, because then Hollywood got involved, Elizabeth Taylor got involved, even Nancy
Yes.
Reagan. And so there was a softening of the edges towards that, just knowing that someone that everybody loved and thought was, important, came out against something.
Even though
And
he came out very much at the end of his illness,
yeah,
but
but I mean, he
but
did so nonetheless and let himself be
yeah,
filmed, and and all of that.
absolutely. So as you earlier mentioned, Laura, you also had a very colorful jazz score to American Fiction that
Yeah.
earned you an Oscar nomination.
Yes.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Um, so why do you think jazz, it seems to be kind of an emerging force in film scoring now? And have you always been an aficionado of the form?
Yes, yes, I've played jazz my whole life. I grew up learning classical music and jazz completely simultaneously, and when I went to Juilliard, at night I would go play and sing in jazz clubs and study concert music and classical music by day. So for me, they were never separate, and I think jazz has been a substantial part of my work over the years. It's not often that people come and say, we want a jazz score, but I do think that, as you can see through my work, through Terence Blanchard, Chris Bowers, Branford Marsalis, I think he scored the Barrett Rustin film last year. I think that there are a lot of jazz artists who are like scoring and using their talents and their backgrounds to really bring this back into scoring. And as I know, but jazz was a huge part of scoring in the 60s with Lalo Schifrin and Elmer Bernstein, Johnny Williams, who was Johnny Williams at that time. And so it's always been a part of what we do, but it does feel like there's a tolerance for it. And in my case, and very gratefully, a kind of rewarding of those efforts. I mean, to have an Oscar and Emmy nomination in the same year for jazz scores is, I think, really, really fantastic news for people who love jazz and feel that it has a place in scoring.
Would you say that it tends to be attached in large measure to more period pieces and more
No,
yesteryear?
no, because American Fiction wasn't. American
That's
Fiction was a
true.
contemporary piece. That was just I mean, American Fiction was very much part of the character. I mean, his name was Thelonious, which of course is Thelonious Monk's name. But I think in this case, the period allowed the kind of entrance of jazz, but then the themes became the themes for all periods,
Yeah.
because it's a lifetime work. So it goes through a number of decades.
What was your collaboration like with Stephen Kijak on the rock film? Was
Oh,
it was different working with Cord Jefferson, or kind of similar experiences?
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're very, very powerful. They're both powerful collaborations. I mean, with Stephen, It was not our first time working together, so he really knew what I could do, and he showed up in the studio when we recorded, so we basically kind of recorded the music in advance, you know, made, recordings of very much iterations of the themes, and then we put them into the picture. I further expanded on them. He commented, we went through a typical scoring process, which of course, this works, this doesn't work, all of that kind of stuff. And I would say with Chord, it was the same thing where basically I would play them themes. Certain things would be recorded. The thing about jazz, it is that, like, it's hard to do MIDI demos of jazz scores. It's not even about improvisation necessarily. It's about, there are just no great samples, that sax samples don't sound good, so you kind of need to record to a certain extent to give people an idea of what your vision is. So in both cases, I kind of recorded as I went along and then would play them stuff that was pretty well fleshed out and then take notes, and address them.
You mentioned improv. Did Stephen leave you room to improvise?
Yeah, yeah. I think that for the Steven scores, we planned the improv very, very carefully. So I knew I had 23 bars and I knew, 5 of them could be improvised. With chord score, it was more like I would have someone record something and then shape the improvisation to work with the dialogue and then go back to them and make changes. So it was a little bit of a different process, but with very much the same kinds of results.
What's your usual process with directors? Or is there always a lot of give and taking back and forth? Is that
Oh, yeah,
simply
yeah, I mean,
part of it?
everything is different, I'm working on a TV show right now that I can't announce, but, it's also got, I would say, kind of a jazz feeling to it, and it's the same thing where I have to get stuff recorded, I'll send it out, I'll get notes back, I'll make changes, either the players will have to make changes or I'll do them, through editing, and, when I work on Marvel projects, of course, that's mostly orchestral, so those are all MIDI demos that then get evaluated, and then we make whatever changes are necessary.
Not to date you, but you've been at this game composing for film and TV for a good long time, Laura.
Good long time, yes.
I noticed your first credit on IMDb was for The Hunchback of Notre Dame back in
Oh, no, 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 that one,
back in
that's so funny.
1923, and I thought,
Yeah,
man,
no.
this woman really holds her
Yeah,
age well.
I'm like, what, I'm like Dorian Gray, no.
Yeah, no,
No,
then I
that
noticed it was a
the
re-release.
yeah, this is actually a relatively recent score. Now, I've been doing
Yeah,
it for a long time, for over 30 years, so I am what they call a veteran of this at this point,
yeah.
and
I had
happy
to,
to.
I just had to throw that out because I saw
Yeah, no, I love that.
1923 on your
You're
resume.
not the first person to mention it, and yes, I love to think, "Yes, I was born in 1923, it's my 100th year, don't I look great?"
You do. Well,
Yeah,
if you
for
did it in
100, I
1923,
do.
you would have had to be like 135,
Yeah,
actually,
no, it'd
probably.
be awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
Not that I have any doubts you will not continue to go through the time you're 135.
Oh, thank
Um, uh, in fact, you're not slowing down in the slightest, Boy. I see you completed 6 projects, at least that are listed from your resume in 2023 alone. Don't you
Yeah.
have anything better to do? No.
Yes, I do, but I'm not doing it. No, it's funny you bring that up because, we're really, really busy right now, and, but I've had 2 performances this summer, one that was in London and one that was on Monday night in New York, and I made myself go to both of them for kind of because I wanted to have that experience in addition to sitting here and doing this. And I wrote, the Monday night thing was real. I mean, they were both special. One was a piece that I'd written called All American with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in Hyde Park in London. But the Monday night thing was in Carnegie Hall. It was a tiny little piece that I wrote for the Youth Orchestra of the United States. And it's a group it's the best youth orchestra you've ever heard in your life. And I wrote a little piece called Swing that's really about teenage mood swings because I have one, a teenager meaning. And I'm so glad I went and heard it and saw these kids play it and participated in that. So I would say that the difference between me now and maybe me 10 years ago is that I wouldn't have gotten up out of my chair 10 years ago, but now I get up out of my chair, I go fence, I've got a kid, I travel, to hear wonderful things or to go do things. And so I do have other interests that I'm embracing, but I'm having the time, honestly, really honestly, and very disclosing, my career's at its height right now. I mean, I'm working on fantastic projects with great directors. And so I don't really want to slow down because I've finally gotten to where I want to be. You know what I mean?
No, no ageism here. I mean, you've hit
It's
the height
okay.
of your.
Yeah, so far so good. I know it's out there and there's certain things that I hear now and again, but I'd say the sexism has been more potent than the ageism.
Well, that actually kind of leads into another area, Laura. I saw that you founded the Alliance for Women Film Composers,
Yeah,
and good for you for doing it. Sounds as
thank
if
you.
you're a fierce champion for DEI in Hollywood. And you were the first female governor in the music branch of the Film Academy.
Hmm.
So, not to sound naive, but is music an area of the industry where there's discrimination against women and you need to fight for respect and inclusion still?
Yes.
Okay. And I,
Yes. Yes.
I would have hoped we were past that, but maybe that again, that could be naive on my part.
It's not naive. I think that it takes look, I'll give you a beautiful example. My wife's mother is a scientist. And she used to go into her undergraduate classes, she teaches university level, and ask all the students to draw a picture of a scientist. And of course, they would all draw Einstein, male, female, and every gender. And I think it takes a long time for people to see film composers or, in any male dominated profession, to see women, other underrepresented groups as having substantive careers. And there it has gotten way, 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 way better as evidenced just by me. You know, you you mentioned 2023 was super busy for me. It was. I've had other equally busy years, but I've never had the kind of visibility that I had last year and the kind of team behind me that I had last year. So I think that we are seeing substantive changes, and that's good. And I think when you see women represented across all fields, and it starts to become more normalized, I think that that's when we'll start to see real numbers shifting. The numbers are changing, but very, very slowly, and somewhat incrementally.
But along those same lines, Laura, I host panels here at Gold Derby, and
Yeah,
often there will be directors panels and there will be showrunner panels, and there are often, sometimes possibly even more than half the time, more women than men on those
good,
panels,
good.
and which
And
is
it
really
was not
encouraging.
it just wasn't always that way. I mean, when we started the Alliance, there were no women on any panels ever, and certainly no Black or brown people. So I think that now the big change has been people like you. You're hip to this. You know that there are a lot of incredible female showrunners. You know there are a lot of incredible female directors. You can name them. Like, you can hold up your hands. It's like, I'm going to call Shonda or Greta Gerwig or, you know, so many people. And so you're not struggling to come up with those names in the way, even though we've existed exemplified by the fact that I have a very long career at this point. Again, I didn't have the visibility. So people are naming, like today, I just got this uh feature composer of the year for the World Soundtrack Awards. Oh, it's the first time I've ever gotten that, right? First time I've ever
Congratulations.
gotten any award, thank you, but any nomination from them. um and it's because I've had works that have been visible this last year. It's not that I haven't done good work in the past, but people have seen the work, they know it's good, and so it makes sense to them.
And being an Oscar nominee helps with your exposure and your brand,
It sure
certainly.
does. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's a fabulous, fabulous gift.
Just to get back to exactly what you do beyond that, just for a moment before we wrap, Laura, if you have a specialty in composing for the screen world, what would you say it is? Or are you gloriously eclectic?
No, you know what? I think it's intensity. Like, I'm kind of an intense person, and I think I'm an intense composer. I don't shy away from musical complexity. I think it's okay, and my clients like it, and it like, I'm not a less is more kind of gal.
Are you a more is more gal?
I'm a more is more gal in every part of my life. And, we're talking about, like, age and stuff like that. I embrace that now with aplomb and joy, and yes, more is more in terms of, my style, dressing, composition, schedule, everything. And thankfully, everybody's kinda enjoying that about me as well.
Well, you're just charming and delightful, Laura.
Thank you. You're so nice to meet you.
You too, clearly a force of nature, and I could talk to you all day, but my editor would be upset with me if I did. So I think we're
All
going to
right.
leave things there.
Right.
Rock Hudson, All That Heaven Allowed, streams on Max. Laura Karpman, best of luck at the Emmys in September.
Thank
Uh,
you so much.
and
I
thanks for
appreciate
joining
it.
us today at Gold Derby. And take
My
care of
pleasure.
yourself.
Thank you, Ray.